And I think the big problem with even psychoanalysis or psychiatry is that the problem of, I mean, this is a big problem in America as well, with the whole kind of categorizing people's identities with terminology that developed from psychiatry, and then people falling into that with a victim mentality. So, like, people say, "Oh, I have OCD," or "I have bipolar personality," or "I have anxiety disorder." I have, all of these terms. The sad thing that really frustrates me when I see it is people fall into these categories with a victim mentality of uh, uh, of the categorization put on their personality as that which overcomes them, rather than them overcoming it, which is annoying because it's the psychiatrists or even the people who, big pharma and stuff like this, that kind of promote that mindset because no one is really trying to work with people to allow them to push through it so that they aren't on medication that really they don't need to be on. So a lot of medication, like people are over medicated in America insanely. There's one thing I noticed massively when I come in here is the medication, but also the supplementation in stores. There's so much more supplement because there's so much more stuff here anyway. But the medication is unbelievably so much. There's so much medication, over medication with all sorts of different drugs that you would have never heard of until you go to America, even, especially antidepressants. And that's a big problem because it limits people's uh, their ability to understand themselves. You can't truly understand yourself if you are medicated so much that you can't really sit with yourself because the medication cuts your ability to really actually sit with yourself in a way where you can actually try and go work through these things, through these processes of journaling, meditation, and all of these different methods. I mean, like a lot of the other stuff I do is I've created like worksheets that are kind of more based within forms of or strategies of ways that you can journal. So things to do with self-compassion, uh, different philosophy methods like Socratic questioning, but through a therapeutic method. I mean, a lot of things like role modeling is based within cognitive behavioral theory as well. I mean, you have the idea of role modeling certain Stoic philosophers and how through their moral compass they would kind of navigate their day, and how you would then match up your personality or your ambitions to the idolization of those individuals. I mean, that's another thing as well that you can do with some people that is very useful, especially if they really like philosophy and they really look up to certain people with great strengths, such as like maybe Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, all those types of individuals. But um, but yeah, to your point, like meditation is it definitely fits in with that. But then of course there's these many problems of psychiatry that are becoming very obvious, and how it's really proving itself to not be a science because and that's a big argument that you have as well within that type of community where they say, well, it's not really a true science. And in a sense, it isn't because the subjective is the objective. Your subjective experience is the objective of how you understand yourself. So science is more about trying to figure out what the objective truth is. But with psychiatry or psychology, the objective truth is the subjective truth because it's well, what you've experienced. So that's a big thing that people don't really realize that much in that field, I think.
Interesting. Yeah. To your point, I was at the doctor recently about a couple of weeks ago. I took a depression questionnaire, and they recommended, based on the result of the questionnaire, that I try antidepressants. And
Mm,
I was actually going into that appointment thinking, you know, I want to be healthier. I want like that kind of better mental health. I want to improve my well-being. I hope I get prescribed antidepressants because this is going to help me.
mm,
And I kind of thought about it after the fact. And, I spoke to my kind of community and people I have like mentors and stuff. And um, kind of just leaned into community and human connection. And that really was what made the difference. I think human connection, like really, you know, almost was a cure for the depression. Because I'd actually heard about that as well. Some people had mentioned in Portugal, they decriminalized a lot of drugs, and they focus for addiction. They focus on human connection. So I was kind of like, you know what? I'll try and go a kind of a more of an internal route to improve my mental health. And I feel like that's what you're kind of getting at, as opposed to reaching externally for supplements or for medication or for a diagnosis. You're talking about going internal. So how would someone kind of start that process of going internally to improve maybe their physical health? Could they do it on their own, or would it require to work with a coach, to work with a therapist, over the
Mm.
long term to see change?
Yeah, it really depends because with the society we live in now, it's like, what level of convenience are we comfortable with? Because it's like society makes everything so convenient now. Like you have convenience stores, but also you have the fact that psychoactive drugs are available so easily. It creates this convenience of, well, I don't need to put the responsibility onto myself to actually help myself. I need to, I can just put the responsibility onto the doctor, and then he acts as the authority figure for me to kind of basically submit to in a sense. But like so it depends on what level of comfortability you are at with being living a convenient lifestyle, because we all live it to some degree a convenient lifestyle because we live in the modern world. But it depends on that. And then I'd say like just simply stepping into the gym and just showing up is the big thing. Because even with martial arts, as like saying before we started recording this, with the BJJ and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I recently started, was it's simply about showing up, and just the action of that itself is way better than just kind of not committing to it, because it's like even reactive behavior is kind of like it's not proactive. So like if you want to be proactive, you have to think forward in a sense where you make a plan instead of react to a situation that has happened to you. So someone, for example, let's say like they haven't had the best diet or whatever, and then by the fact that they know that that diet themselves that they have that's not good is going to affect them negatively in the future, but they keep feeding into that let's say really bad diet, and then they get something horrible later on, with some disease or whatever, or some sort of illness. That's kind of like living reactively, because at that point when they realize that they've gotten sick, they will then react to, okay, how do I fix myself? But if you want to be proactive or live proactively, you need to look at right now, okay, what can I do to stop this, and then change it so that I don't actually end up in the situation that I don't want to be in the future. That will then actually cause you to change instantly, you know? So trying to have a proactive mindset as well is super important. Predetermine what's going to happen to you in the future if you don't change these things that you need to change.